Hello everyone, Jai Hind and welcome to the platform of StudyIQ IAS in English. My name is Bhavat Singh Surya, makes India 115th course and qualified civil services in 2012. And I welcome you on the platform. Now in this session, we'll be talking about the smart way of reading newspaper for the UPSC. Now, as you all know that we have at StudyIQ, we have moved to the smart model of the preparation. And ultimately, when it comes to the smart way of reading the newspaper, please do not have this idea that this is about some shortcut. Because this is about reading the newspaper the right way that I'll be talking about in this session. Along with me, you will be, coming to know and coming to analyze that how you must read the newspaper if you are preparing for the UPSC examination. Now, we have seen that the UPSC have evolved over a period of time. And there was a time that when you went for the rote memorization, you would have qualified the civil services. But now it has moved to the integrated conceptual analysis and the newspaper. The daily newspaper is where you get the constitutional principles which are operating in the real time. So we have static knowledge that comes from the textbook, and we have the dynamic knowledge or the news that comes from the newspaper where we get the real-time administrative and the policy developments. And ultimately, this is the analytical loop that you have to develop, where you have to connect both of them. The static knowledge as well as the dynamic news that have to be connected for the complete success in the UPSC examination. Now, what happens is that there are some of the aspirants which think that they can move for the monthly magazines which are there. Now, let me tell you, the monthly compilations which are there, they are just supplement. They cannot be the substitute. And there are certain failures which arise when we rely on the monthly magazine or the compilation alone. The first one is about the conceptual failure, where the compilation, they strip the connective tissue that is there. For any of the news that is there in the, that is there in news, or anything that is covered by the newspaper. So there is the week of the legislative debate that you come to know about. There is also the public reaction and the regional context. Ultimately, these all enable us for the option elimination. And if you are just following the monthly magazine or the compilation, so you just get through that conceptual failure that is there. You do not develop that complete context and the concept for the particular the news or the issue that is there. Then there is linguistic failure as well. Now, when it comes to the compilations, now the compilations are actually compiled in that manner so that you can understand any topic. All right, the language that is used is simplified, but at the same time, the UPSC uses formal and the policy-oriented English or the language that is required. So ultimately, you require the complete, the newspaper. You need to go through it so that you can develop that language that is required for qualifying in the UPSC. Then there is temporal failure as well, because the compilation, they arrive nearly about 2 weeks after the month end, and thereby they turn the complete synthesis into the stressful cramming rather than that there should be the distributed retention of the particular topic or particular subject. Now, over here, it is very important to note the complete difference between daily newspaper and going through it and the monthly compilation. Now, when it comes to daily newspaper, if you are reading, you move towards the conceptual synthesis of the various news articles which are there. You get the linguistic training and the contextual integration as well. And also, there is the advanced policy prose that you learn along with the complex syntax that is required while you are framing the answers in the UPSC, and the context retention is quite high because you will be tracking the chronological policy or the legal evolution. And there is the essay construction, the answer writing, the interview preparation. That is very important that for these you go through the daily newspaper. When it comes to monthly compilation, there is rapid data recovery, the factual validation and the revision that can be done through the monthly compilation. Over here, the language is quite simplified, and ultimately that is only for the quick memorization, and the retention is quite low because it isolates the issues into the complete static bullet points. And it is the end of the month consolidation and the gap filling that we use while we are moving towards the monthly compilation. Now, it is very important that when it comes to the newspaper reading, it is beyond journal studies. It also helps you preparing for the CSAT and the English mains, because when it comes to CSAT, you must have seen that there are comprehension passages. Now, they are increasingly adapted from the editorial pages of the national newspapers, and ultimately that helps you in building the reading skills as well. That is very important because you must have realized while seeing the prelims examination of 2026 that you have to develop the reading habits if you want to succeed in prelims as well. So over here, it builds you the verbal stamina where you track the nuanced arguments and the conditional clauses at a proper speed, and you analyze them also at a proper speed. There is vocabulary growth where the policy registered vocabulary, it is acquired through the daily exposure through the newspaper, and ultimately that prepares you for English mains as well, where we have precis writing, we have the usage and comprehension, all are trained through the quality newspaper or the journalism that is available. Now over here, it is very important that we must choose the right newspaper. You must have heard about two of the newspaper, that is the Hindu and the Indian Express. Now, if you are choosing the Hindu, remember that you will get the academic tone and the structured prose that will be there, and there will be the deep governance, constitutional and environmental coverage that is covered through the Hindu. As well as it is best filtered through a strict UPSC syllabus lens, so ultimately you get only those news which are important for your preparation. Then the Indian Express is also the right newspaper because it is more accessible for beginners. There is clear explanation and diverse editorial opinion, and also excellent supplementary feature pages are there that builds you for your preparation. Now, what is the recommended strategy? So you must go through both the newspaper, the Hindu as well, the Indian Express as well, but then you have to choose one of them as your primary daily source. I will suggest you to use the Hindu for your primary daily source, and then you have to supplement selectively from the Indian Express. And if you will be reading both the newspaper, then that would be like reading both from cover to cover. That will cause the information overload and there will be duplicated effort. So that is why you have to make one primary and the secondary, and that is how you have to navigate both the newspapers. Now, there are certain types of or the fields that you have to focus, and ultimately they are the high yield areas, and there are lots of news that will be there in the newspaper that is of no use to us. All right, so these are the high yield areas where you have to focus, like for example, any constitutional decision, any kind of Supreme Court ruling, the major bills or the parliamentary debates, they become important for your preparation. At the same time, if there is any macroeconomic trend, like for example, any fiscal policy change or the RBI decision related to the monetary policy or even the economic reforms, then they are important. Then there are international relations, any kind of treaty, summit or the India's strategic interest, and even the science and environment where we are talking about conservation, the climate negotiations, if any are taking place, or the tech breakthrough. They are the important things where we have to focus. These are the regions. And if there is any political rivalry, no need to go through it. All right, whether it is party campaigns or the election strategies, or it is the stock movements or the earning reports as well. So any micro corporate news is of no importance. The sensational incidents which are there, local crimes and the regional disputes, again of no importance. And then the entertainment and the gossip is also something that you must filter out when you are reading the newspaper. Now, you must have a complete 90-minute daily schedule where the first phase is about scanning, where you should devote around 20 minutes, and you have to scan the front page, the national page, even the international and the economy page. Now over here, what you have to do is just mark the relevant articles. All right, just bypass any local or the sensational news that is there, and that is what your 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes that lies about. Then comes the second phase, that is detailed reading. This must be about 45 minutes where you have to deep read the editorial page that is there, and even the feature sections, like for example, text and context in the Hindu and the explained in the Indian Express, and you have to focus on the policy arguments and the data. And then comes very important part that we do not do, and that is the note making. And you should devote around like 20 to 25 minutes for the note making, where you have to summarize the key arguments which are there, the statistics, into a proper, concise, syllabus map bullet points, and there should be no long sentence copying when you are moving for the notes making. Now also you have to filter the complete news through the GS paper. All right, like for example, when it comes to the GS paper, you have to map every article to the paper. Before noting any article, you have to ask that which GS paper does this belong to. Then you have to organize the notes. But over here, this is very important that you have to understand that there are some times that you will get into the continuous loop. All right, like for example, a cyclone that strikes, that is a geography. At the same time, it is also about disaster management. Or the Supreme Court ruling is about the polity, and it could be also about the social justice. So you have to map the news, and again you have to keep in mind that one news, it can overlap with more than two of the GS subjects that are there. Now, For the India and geography, that is paper 1, you can move forward, and if there is any news about society, the caste, urbanization, migration, or the cyclones, geography and water scarcity, that must be mapped with the paper 1. Then for the paper 2, any polity related articles or the bills, constitution, international relation, treaties, and even the G20 and UN. For the economy, or the third paper, that is about economy, RBI, any kind of fiscal deficit, trade, and even environment and the summit and the biodiversity, that must be mapped with the paper 3. And then we have ethics and values, where you should integrate it with anything that concerned with ethics or integrity or whistleblowing, corruption or anti-corruption, and even with the public service. And that is why how you will you will do the filtering when it comes to the GS papers. Now over here it is very important that there are 2 feature pages in both the newspaper, in the Hindu as well in the Indian Express. In the Hindu, there is the text and context. Now over here it is very important because the focus here in text and context, you will find that it is about the structural issue or the legal issue, the policy issue, and the constitutional development. Now this text and context, it is very important for your GS paper 2, where we have the news that relates to polity, governance, or the social justice, and this is ideal for analyzing any kind of legal amendments, the governance issues, or the structural policy changes along with the constitutional grounding. Then there is explained, that is there a feature page that is of Indian Express, where the focus is on the functional, operational, and the scientific developments that are there. Now this relates to GS paper 3, where we have economy, science and tech, environment, and highly effective for breaking down the macroeconomic trends, the concepts, the scientific breakthroughs, and even the environmental debates with the proper clarity. So these sections basically is the bridge that lies between your static syllabus and the news analysis that is there. And that is why you have to map these feature pages. That is very, very important. And you have to prioritize them. When you are reading the newspaper, they should be there in your phase 2 of the newspaper reading. Now there has to be cartographic integration as well, because whenever you are going through any geographic news, whether it is about a country, a river, border dispute, or even a maritime corridor, so you have to locate it immediately in your atlas. And for atlas, you could have the Oxford Atlas or even any other atlas that should be there, but I will suggest you to have the Oxford Student Atlas that is there. Now you must have seen in prelims that the UPSC frequently tests these spatial relationship in the regions which are undergoing environmental or any kind of geopolitical change. So you have to identify the location, whether it is the place, river, or any border that is on the map. Along with this, you have to link it with the static geography of that particular region, whether it is the terrain, it is the climate, or resources and the regional context as well. And then you have to build the complete answer, or you have to incorporate the maps into your answers as well, the spatial analysis when you are writing in the mains examination. Now comes the most important part and the aspect, that is note making. Now, for the note making, there are 2 ways. We have the digital platforms as well, like for example, Evernote or OneNote, and we have the traditional method, that is handwritten notes as well, where we make notebooks and the index cards. Now, traditionally, I suggest you to go for the handwritten notes because when it comes to the answer writing, we do not practice much of the answer writing, and if you will be making notes through your hands, so you will be in the practice of writing. So that is why I'm telling you that this is my personal suggestion, that if you are making the notes, you must make the notes, and you should use the handwritten notes for your complete preparation. Because there is 2 things that happens when we are writing the notes. The first thing is, I told you that it will develop your writing habit. The second thing is that you remember things when you write it down. Alright, so there are digital platforms as well where you can easily edit them as the policies evolve. They are searchable and linkable, and they are best for GS paper 2 and 3 because ultimately these topics are dynamic and they are frequently updated. At the same time, when it comes to handwritten note, they gives you strong conceptual retention and builds your mains answer writing speed, and you can use them for GS paper 1 and GS paper 4 where we have more of the static content and the foundational content that is there. So that depends on you how you have to use them, both of the platforms, or even if you want to mix and use it. Like for example, I told you for the dynamic portion we can use the digital platforms, and for the static portion we can use the handwritten notes. So it is very important that you have to understand that you do not have to organize your notes chronologically. All right, they should not be like on first day or on 1st of June, this was the news. No, you have to analyze them in a manner that you can link it with the GS paper. So organize all the notes, like for example, GS paper, we have environment and ecology. So all the news that is related to this, and there should be sub-themes, and ultimately that is the structure that mirrors the examination, and it is important because ultimately you can update if there had been any changes, and also while you are revising, it becomes very easy to revise it subject wise, and that is why it is important to arrange your notes in a manner. Now there's a monthly consolidation loop that you have to follow. The first thing is you have to go through daily newspaper reading. Then you have to make a supplementary monitor as well. You have to have a gap fill for the monthly news and then bi-weekly reviews as well. That is what you have to do. So it is one cohesive system where you have to avoid any kind of duplicating effort. Daily note making, the compilation and the government sources, they must feed into the single and unified archive, and you should not have separate stacks for everything. So even if there is any official legislative or the policy announcement that has been made by the PIB or the PRS, you have to integrate it into your notes making that you are doing daily. The Yojana and Kurukshetra, they are very important because they give the in-depth analysis of the government schemes and the rural development, where we have lots of things which had been asked in the UPSC examination. So you have to make the notes, then you have to read the complete monthly compilation with 15-day lag. So ultimately you can patch the gaps, and also you never rewrite the existing notes that are there in your notebook. So that is very, very important that when it comes to note making. Now it is very important that when it comes to our preparation, so there are disruptions which are inevitable. The disruptions, they could be because of the personal reasons, they could be because of the health emergency, because of the family reason as well. But at the same time, your strategy should be that you should recover without any panic. Now, if there are any short-term disruption, like for example, you have missed it for the less than 3 days. So do not read back the issues cover to cover. At the same time, skim the headlines of the missed days for the major policy updates only, and resume reading the current day's paper immediately, that you must do. But if there had been long-term disruption, say more than 3 days, you have missed the newspaper reading, so skip the missed issues which are there entirely. Use the monthly compilation to patch the knowledge gap that have existed between the time period that had been missed, and trust that the systemic issues, they will resurface in the editorials in the coming days, and ultimately you will make the notes through them. So you have to maintain this very efficiently, and even if there is a gap, there is a disruption, you should not panic. Also, it is very important that you must keep a rolling 12 to 18 months of the current affairs timeline. Because when it comes to UPSC does not goes with a fixed timeline that, okay, you just go through the 6 months of the the current affairs and you will go through or you will pass through. So it is very important that when it comes to a critical structural issues, they may require that there is a proper context that has to be built up right from, up to 2 years prior, and consistency and not the completeness that is the goal when you are making or when you are reading the newspaper that you need to understand. Now, for the complete Hindu analysis, we do the Hindu analysis every day, and you can just, hop onto our channel, that is StudyIQ IAS, and every day at 9:30 a.m., I'm taking the complete The Hindu analysis, where we analyze all the important major articles which had been featured in the Hindu. And then we do a complete analysis that what article is all about and how it will relate to the different sectors, whether it is economic, social, political. So we do the multidimensional analysis on our channel daily. So you can join me daily at 9:30 a.m. Also, it is very important that if you are preparing for the civil services for the 2027, 2028 or even for 2029. So it is very important that just by going through the newspaper is not enough. You have to build a complete your foundation, your basics, and for that we have the P2I batches which are available on the platform of StudyIQ, and you can enroll in these batches. We have the resolution P2I batch that is for the English medium, and you can use the code that is BRS Live for the maximum discount that you will get on the platform of StudyIQ. So that would be all in this session, but I hope that I have been able to guide you throughout that what are the smart ways to read the newspaper and which all newspaper you have to cover, and what are the things that you have to keep in mind, and also if there had been disruption, how you have to browse through it. So that would be all in this video, but do not forget to like the session. Do also comment and if there is any doubt, you can ask the doubt in the comment section, and also share this video with your friends who are preparing for the civil services and they need a guidance for the newspaper reading. So that would be all, but do not forget to share, to subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss any of the updates in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care and Jai Hind.